Boys and girls, we are back for another edition of the Truman Lake Fishing Intel Expert Roundtable. It is the second week of May. Turkey season just wrapped up. Crappie are on the banks. And I think we were talking earlier, if you can't catch a bass right now on Truman, you might want to give up fishing.
Take up golf.
There's some really, really good fishing going on, and we're really excited to get into it with you guys. Before we do, just a couple of things that we always talk about. First, we want to say thank you to Nini's Italian Steakhouse and Catering down in Warsaw, Missouri. They provided food again here for us tonight. Really good. They actually have an event coming up on May 24th down at the Community Center in Warsaw. The proceeds are going to the family of the officer that passed away recently down in Warsaw. They are going to be showcasing their brand new menu. It's going to be a 6-course meal, several different options that you can choose from. So be on the lookout for that online. We're going to share some stuff at the Facebook page, so you'll see that. But it's for a great cause. So you'll get to enjoy some food, and it'll be for a great cause. So be sure to go check them out. That's May 24th. I think it's a Tuesday night, but I'm not sure. And then on top of that, as always, I want to thank Anglers Port Marine as well. They are located very conveniently between Clinton and Warsaw, Missouri. They're your premier Lowe, Camus, and Phoenix boat dealers here in the area. They take really good care of you, whether it's the sale of the boat, the service. They have all kinds of customer rewards. If you get your boat service there, you get entered into drawings every time you get your boat service there. All kinds of really cool stuff. Great team there, Anglers Port Marine. Be sure to check them out as well. As far as the rest of this video, we're going to be talking about several things. We're going to be talking about the crappie spawn, kind of the ups and downs that it's been here the last couple weeks, what we got left, if anything, on the crappie spawn. We're going to be talking bass fishing. We'll touch a little bit on some catfish, some hybrid white bass, that type of thing. But it's going to be a really good video. For those of you guys watching this on Facebook and YouTube, we do this video every single month with true lake experts. Tonight I've got Darren Langford here on my far right, Jeff Falkenberry, Endless Season Guide Service, Brock Rinkemeyer, Brock's Guide Service, and also tournament angler. He won the Toyota Series on Lake of the Ozarks here recently. And of course, David Ryan from Dave's Custom Baits. You guys have seen him a lot, and his baits are really incredible. And we showcase these guys every month. They share some really spectacular knowledge on Truman Lake, how to break it down on all these species. So for those of you that are watching this on YouTube and Facebook, we dropped the preview on it, but if you want to see the full video, you got to become a premium member at TrumanLakeFishingIntel.com. You'll have access to all these videos and many, many more, along with our premium fishing reports as well. So with that, let's get started. I want to start with you, Jeff, because you were out chasing crappie, and crappie's on the mind for a lot of folks right now on Truman Lake with the crappie spawn, and sounds like you got into them on the old spawn bite on the bank.
Yeah, it is. 2 weeks ago, the spawn just kind of really started kicking off, and where we were seeing some of the first fish, it was kind of really backwards. Typically, we'll start seeing those first fish move to the banks, up on the dirtier ends of the lake, up the Grand, and then toward the warmer water's getting warmer quicker, and then it'll start working its way down the lake. And this year, for whatever reason, the first fish that we found on the banks real hot and heavy were actually on the Tebow in some really clear water, and it was really good 2 weeks ago. I mean, you could load the boat, and the trucks were parked all the way up PP Highway, putting in at Windsor Crossing. It's kind of funny. I made the comment, there's so many people that I don't see until the crappie hit the banks. Like jet boats come out of everywhere. Every Cowtown Legend, every inboard jet, just, I don't know. You never see them all year long, and then all of a sudden when the crappie hit the banks, they're everywhere. And I mean, it's cool, but some of them people, it's kind of like deer camp. I visit with some of those guys, and then, you don't see them all year, and then boom, crappie hit the banks, and it's like, hey, how's the kids, you know? So it's super cool, but those fish got up there, and it was absolutely incredible. It was fantastic. But then we got a bunch of rain. And a bunch of rain in a hurry, and the water came up around them, and those fish pulled back out and just staged again, basically. And now, within the last 4 or 5 days, back on the Grand side, these fish, the water, it's got so hot, 90 degrees, water temperature's warmed back up. These fish are just following the water up. You catch crappie on the same banks every day with the water coming up a foot, you know. But now it's got past the bushes. So now you got all this little button bush and all the willows and everything out the edge, but the water's past it. And you can catch some fish on the front side of that. But today, which was, I don't know when this gets posted, but today, which was Tuesday, we put our bobbers away, got our long rods out, and we're actually reaching past the willows and the button bushes into the grass and catching our fish out of the grass.
Wow.
So it was kind of neat.
And it gotten hot, real hot today. What's the water temperature here recently?
71, 72
Oh,
on my active target transducer, which is really high in the water column. So that's a surface temp.
Yeah.
A true surface temp.
Yeah.
Because my transducer is pretty high for my forward facing. And so, yeah, it's warming up really quickly.
Yeah. That's really fascinating because, last week when I was talking to Richard, some of the other guys, they were back to live scoping in the middle of the creeks and catching fish pretty deep, 15, 20 feet of water.
Yeah.
So, and I know you were kind of doing
I saw
some
him
of that too.
chunking banks yesterday, so.
Yeah. Well, that's what it sounded like. It got tough on the old live scope, and they went back to bank fishing.
Yeah, it did, and he caught him yesterday, but he caught most of his fish on the banks just as I did. We caught some fish spider rigging. We're still one of the last of the Mohicans in the guide life that's still doing spider rigging. I got people that enjoy it and ask to go do it, so, and I don't mind it when the wind's light. You know, it's easy and you don't have to fight tangles and stuff like that, and everybody can be successful that way.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the lake coming up. We saw earlier was 717 and some change.
Yeah.
So it's 11 feet high. Are they cranking water? I hadn't checked today.
22,000. I wouldn't call it cranking, but they're running some.
How many units is that?
Half.
Yeah, that's halfway. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Really interesting. I'm kind of curious to see your thoughts on this because I talked to Steve Blake yesterday. He's been getting back out there. He'd been kind of working on some projects, not feeling super well here the last couple months, but he's been getting out the last week. And he had something really interesting that, it makes sense, but he was talking about when the lake gets up really high and it's just takes special conditions for it, and they start really ripping water through the dam. He said usually when they got the floodgates and the turbines going, it'll create a ton of foam at the dam, and that it'll come out pretty good. And that the way he described it, there's a lot of the photoplankton or those microorganisms that get up in there, and then the little fry of shad get up there and start eating it, and then the crappie and predator fish of all kinds will get up underneath them. And he said you can go in there, drop a jig down 10 feet, and just go to town. Is that something you've ever heard of or heard people talk about?
No, I don't doubt it any. He's been doing that a long time. And he's wise enough to know. It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
It's not something I've ever done.
Yeah.
I can tell you, like right now with the big winds that we've been having and the rising water, I call them grass mats. I don't know what everybody calls them. It's just all that brown dead grass.
Trash.
And it blows up in there.
Sawdust mats.
Yeah. Them crappie you can get right on the edges of those, and they're all around it, all the way around it. And they'll be, if you find it where it's shallow enough, it'll be blowed up in deeper water. But if you can find it blowed up in the shallow water, it'll be all around it.
Yeah. So they've been on the banks here the last few days. How long do you expect this bank behavior to last? Are we at the tail end of it now?
Yeah, I got a feeling. I think that water temperature will get so high that it becomes, it's done then. You know what I mean? And like today, we caught probably 70% was females, and when you cut through them, their eggs are like chicken yolk. It's just it run out eggs. So I'd say it might hold off, might hold to the weekend, but I don't see it getting much past that. With 90-degree days every day, the water temperature is going to keep cranking up. So.
Yeah, and theoretically, it's going to last the longest down the lower end, closer to the dam, Sterrett Creek area.
Right.
The lower 5
Typically.
miles, that'll be
The coldest water.
Yeah.
Typically. But these things like this, they're tragic for some things and they're great for others. They're tragic for all the turkey nests that were in the bottoms because the water gets up and drowns out those turkey nests. I seen some goose eggs floating today actually along the shoreline.
Oh, geez.
They must not have been any good anyway because it was floating.
Yeah.
But The good thing is, and I've done so many articles with Thin Fisherman and Outdoor Life and all these different writers, but the good thing is the crappie spawn happens pretty fast. So she comes up, she'll drop those eggs within 33 to 38 hours. Those eggs are fry and gone. And so when the water's up like this, those fry have so many more places to hide. Those predator fish can't get to them. So typically, if it works like it is now, it'll be a super duper great spawn, just like it was in 2019, just like it was in 2015. I mean, we had some really great spawns, and this is set to be another one. Sometimes we see the water rise and the fish don't follow.
Yeah.
They spawn out deep. You know, I don't know if those fry make it at those cooler temperatures in deeper water as good as they do when the fish follow it up, but I know when they follow it up, those fry are going to make it really, really good. So
you said sometimes they don't follow. Do you have a theory on why they would or would not follow the water level?
You know, cold rains and then cold temperatures. You know, just like what we had. If it would have stayed cold instead of spiking up to 90 degrees, if it had stayed 60s and low 40s at night, upper 30s,
might have stayed out.
They're going to stay back out there. They're not. It's not feasible for them to move up.
Okay.
Doesn't running water also have something to do with that as well?
Yeah.
They don't feel comfortable to get shallow.
Yeah.
If they're running too much out of the dam.
Yeah, the current spawn, like crappie and bass and walleye, everything, they can take a certain amount of current.
Right.
But that's why that happens so fast, is because they can't be moved out a bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, and to your point about the turkeys, I know we got a lot of turkey hunters watching this. I saw the preliminary numbers is about 36,000 harvested. I think just a little bit more than last year.
Yeah, 5% up.
Yeah, but still, you know, we're just seeing the ramifications of 2019 and some of those floods around the Truman Lake area. Really, it doesn't do good things for the turkeys.
Pretty bad impact. There's a recipe we could talk about and write a book on it. You know, MDC does some good things, and then some things we really need to work on. You know, 10 years ago they farmed all this conservation ground, or somebody did. Now it's just growed up in weeds and briars and stuff chicks can't get through. We talk about habitat. The MDC talks about habitat, and some of our conservation ground is some of the worst habitat for wildlife that there is. CRP programs are going up this year. Contracts, a lot of the contracts went up, and the rules are getting so out that guys are burning off CRP and going back to pasture ground. So there's big recipes, but that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a lot of turkey hunters around Truman that are out there with the crappie fishermen, hitting the banks, all that kind of stuff, and sound like there was not a lot of gobbling going on. So
I was on the lake a lot, and it's nothing like it. It'll never be 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Ever again. No matter what you do, it'll never be as good as it was 10 years ago.
That's awesome.
Well, let's talk about some bass fishing, because we got some bass hammers here sitting around the table with us. I want to start off with Brock. Brock, this is his first time being on the expert roundtable with us. He's been a part of the website for a while. He fishes all over the place. So when he's fishing Truman, we get a report from him when we can, but he is competing nationally all over the place and does extremely well. Fishes with Brad Jelinek quite a bit, who you guys have also seen on the website. Brock, I want you to just kind of share a little bit about just your fishing background and some of your experience. I want to hear about some tournament wins. Brock did just win. It was the Toyota Series, was one of the big five. What was the event?
MLF Toyota Series.
Okay. He just won that on Lake of the Ozarks in a huge field of really good anglers. But I remember reading his name a couple years ago when I was in Lee Summit still, winning 5 or 6 weeks in a row in the Lake Tacoma little
I actually just fished there.
Yeah.
Last night.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And it was Drew Schrader that you were fishing with, and it's just funny to watch. They were just kicking all those guys' butt for 5 or 6 weeks in a row, and that's probably got to be the record on how many people have won that thing in a row. So anyway, tell us the viewers a little bit about your fishing background, and then I want to hear about the Toyota Series.
I grew up fishing, or like you did, the Lee Summit area. anywhere that had water in Lee Summit and surrounding areas. And then I moved. My grandparents had a lake house down here since I was born, and I've been coming down here ever since. And we finally got a house here, and I've been kicking it here for about 2-3 years now, and just bass fishing, and then taking crappie and white bass guide trips for the most part.
Yeah. How old were you when you started getting serious into tournament fishing?
Probably like 17.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
But you were cutting your teeth up.
We were doing tournaments whenever I was like 12. Once I got a paddle boat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say 17, 18. Once I got out of high school, and then it was, all right, I'm just gonna go do this.
Yeah.
That's basically how it happened.
Well, and you've obviously done quite well. You guys can read more about his background on the website, but he's got some pretty big wins, some good high finishes. Most recently, the Toyota Series on Lake of the Ozarks. How many boats were in that? That was a ton of boats.
Yeah, I think like 150,
Yeah.
something like that. I can't remember.
And it's a 3-day deal, correct?
Yeah.
So, and you let it wire to wire, right? Or were you?
I was in second after day one.
Okay.
And I led the last 2 days.
So, just kind of take me through that, because that's your biggest win that you've had, isn't it?
Yeah.
So just kind of fill me in what you were doing there in Lake of the Ozarks. There's a lot of folks here that fish Lake of the Ozarks, and I think they'd be curious to hear your experience over those 3 days.
It was more of like a winter pattern, like it was pre-spawn. We were throwing a lot of jerk baits and A-rigs. We'd fish brush piles, anything on the bottom in like that 15 to 20 foot, those staging areas before they go up to actually spawn. So I would call it dead of winter. They're way out there. It could be big busted up rock or a brush pile. And I think that the thing that set me apart from everybody else is they were all just running wood, but I was running rock as well. So, and I caught some big ones just fishing rock. So I'd say that separated me.
So you're leading it after day 2. What's your mindset going into day 3? I mean, you got some nerves going
Catch
on.
25 pounds.
Yeah.
I have to catch 25 pounds because it's Lake of the Ozarks.
Yeah.
Same with this lake. I mean, it's never enough. Somebody like him can go out there and catch 23 pounds and make your 18 pounds look silly.
Yeah.
So
Were you feeling pretty good going out that morning?
What'd you
Or-
weigh on day 1?
21, just a little over 21.
Day 2?
Same thing.
Day 3?
17.4, I think.
What happened between 2 and 3 when you can fall 3 pounds and still lead the whole field?
What happened? Oh, the pressure, man. I think a lot of people knew some of the stuff. Like, a lot of people were fishing the same areas, and eventually the fish did not want to bite.
Yeah.
Like, they figured it out, hey, people have been throwing their A-rigs over here.
There goes another
And
one.
then that's whenever I started throwing a jerk bait, because I'm like,
bites me here.
everybody's seeing, or them, once those fish see an A-rig so many times, they're not going to bite that A-rig.
Right.
And I've seen the same thing at Table Rock. You throw an A-rig out there, they hammer it one day. The next day you throw the A-rig, and they run from it, and you got to throw a single swim bait to get all your bites. So pressure is a big deal.
Are you watching all this on LiveScope?
Most of it, yeah. I would say whenever I'm jerk baiting, not so much.
Not so much on jerk bait.
As long as I know where that rock pile is, or brush pile, or whatever it may be down there,
Yeah.
then spot lock, or at least know line up like the old school guys. They would mark where their boat needs to be and mark where the actual spot's at, and then it just
Wait a minute.
They know.
I'm not that old.
no. But
I got a
I'm
mini-
talking
I got
about
a mini-
we're talking 70, 80.
I got
year
many
olds.
places where I got like
Jerry
that tree up
McCutcheon.
and that tree up over there.
Jerry McCutcheon's one. He's been doing that for years.
Yep. Yep.
So,
But you could see how those fish were reacting
yeah.
to like the
yeah,
A-rig. You know,
yeah.
like they're chasing it.
That's
and
what's
turning it
crazy
off.
nowadays
Chasing
is
it.
you got live scoped it that you can actually see how they react.
Yeah.
And you would never guess they would react some ways that they
Did
do.
everybody fall off on day 3?
I think so.
Josh Shirley
No,
sacked
he
him.
smoked him. Yeah, he smoked.
Yeah,
he was
he
the
was
only
so-
one. Other than that, everybody else fell off.
Yeah.
I think.
What did he have on day 3?
Didn't he have
23, 11.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Cracked
got
him.
him. He got him.
It's so funny. I ran into him during practice.
He's a
'Cause
super nice guy, by the way.
super nice guy. Josh is aces. In fact, years ago, in an event, he was my co-angler, and
Oh, really?
he was leading the event after the second day. He caught big bass at the event with me. He throws a plopper down the side of the dock, and I mean, it was classic. If you could have recorded it. It's like, oh my gosh! It sounded like somebody dropped a cinder block from 50 feet up in the air.
Oh my gosh.
Whoosh! And I was like, but he's such a good dude. But I ran into him because I was down there looking around. I didn't fish the event, but I fished the Anglers in Action afterwards. I ran into him. He'd had a terrible practice. He absolutely was not catching them. In fact,
He went crappie fishing.
Yes,
the last
he
day.
did. I saw him, and he come over, and we're visiting and kind of reminiscing, and he's like, man, I don't know. He goes, I got a couple of bites. I saw some fish on scope. I think I can go over here and catch some. And I was like, have you looked at that or that? And he goes, no, but I will. And so, you know, he just kind of hung around there, and I think all the things kind of came together for him. I don't know if all those were rig fish the last day, or if maybe he jerked some of them, but I mean, awesome sack.
Yeah, one of the best I've seen from a solo deal.
Right, absolutely.
So one of the things I was going to ask you about, so you talked about being able to watch them on live scope, and what about, because we don't really hear people talking about live scoping bass as much on Truman Lake. For some reason it just doesn't play as well for it. Why is it better on Lake of the Ozarks? Or maybe that's not the right way to word it, but it's because I think you and I have talked about it, where Truman is more of a you just got to go fish versus looking at live scope. What's your thoughts on that versus Lake of the Ozarks?
All the trees, I would say. I mean, you can still do it on this lake, but it's a lot harder just with all the trees in the way and basically the trees. I mean,
I think the population too is so much better at Lake of the Ozarks
Yeah.
than it is here.
Yeah.
You have more opportunity. To
they
put-
congregate more in little areas on Truman than Lake of the Ozarks. They're more just spread out everywhere. Truman is like, if you're not in the right area or the right couple creeks, then you're probably not going to do that great, honestly.
Yeah, it's
Truman's very finicky
It
on
is.
where the bite is. Like he talks about all those people putting in at Windsor for the crappie spawn.
Right.
That's because it was happening up there. It was happening. You go to the lower end, you don't see that many boats down there. If you do, they're like, we're not doing that good, you know, because
that's
it's
exactly
happening
right.
up there.
Yeah.
Same thing with Sparrowfoot and all that. I mean, it happens up there first, and then
Well, you could pull
you can
into
tell
a-
by the boat
yeah,
ramps.
you could pull into a place and you know, you're talking about these little areas like what Brock said. There's 3 trees in that forest of 70 trees that are the trees.
Yeah.
And if you fish the rest of them, you might get a random bite, but those 3 trees are where you're always going to catch them. And whether it's a flat drop, whether it's a channel swing that is close, it's some irregularity.
Yeah. Rocks
Yes.
on that tree,
Yes.
a branch that's overhanging. Off
And a
that.
lot, they get into roots here, so
Yeah.
they're in the roots of them trees,
And not a lot of
you
trees
can't
have
harvest.
that.
And a lot of them over there in them, you can't see them.
Yeah.
I mean, hardly at all.
Yeah.
They're real bottom orientated. You know, they don't. They used to suspend on this lake. They haven't suspended for a long time like they used to.
Yeah.
Not good.
We got
not for
them
long.
one
Yeah.
time last summer
Yeah. I was
gonna
suspended.
say.
Other than that,
Not for long periods
It
of
used to
time.
go a month
Yeah.
or two to catch them.
Yes.
It used to be a big deal.
Oh, it's so
10-inch
fun.
red shad worm just swimming.
So
yeah.
fun.
Yep.
Oh, they would get set
That's
up
how-
in 18-foot trees, and I could throw that square bill of mine, that black market balsa through the middle of them, and you'd throw it through the crotch of the tree and whine it. All of a sudden, one would just stand on it. You know, it's a 5-pounder. I mean, that was awesome, and rarely do they really do that anymore.
And is that go back to the population issue or?
I think
A lot
so.
of it's a population, but also the trees aren't like they used to be. They're
Lost
slick.
all
Right.
their stuff.
Right. There's
They've
poles.
got their poles now instead of
Yeah.
having any branches on them like they used to.
And when they run the water intermittently, so let's say they run 15,000 this morning, they shut it off. Okay, now I'm going to run another 20,000 for an hour later. It doesn't let them set up like they need to,
Yeah.
and it doesn't let the water stratify. So if you don't have a thermocline
Yeah.
that's not 24 foot deep, and I don't know, I haven't seen a shallow thermocline here in a long time. I mean, before, like in the heyday, that's why the big worm deal was so good, because the thermocline would be at 12 foot.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't live below it, so you got them right where you want them.
Yeah.
Now you just got to depend on a current bite on Truman.
Yeah.
And then you'd be on G10, cut through, cut for the highway bridge.
Rat race.
Now the Jackson.
Yeah.
7 spots for current fishing, Campground Point.
Yeah.
That's
There isn't
about
very many.
right.
There's
about
not,
right.
but
There's-
the good current points are good.
Yeah.
Like when it's right, it's right.
Well, and not only the bass are there. You've got
Yeah.
walleye stacked up. I mean, you throw that DD22 out there on a current point and whine. Oh, God, a walleye. And there's a whole school of them there ready to bite.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Marvin used to go up there, that little cut, when the water gets up and goes over that saddle before you highway bridge right there below the lookout.
Yeah.
And throw that Bagley. And I mean, you catch a flathead, and then a walleye, and then a
Oh,
largemouth, then a
Everything.
10-pound hybrid, then another walleye,
Yeah.
then another flathead.
That's
I
what's
mean,
great about Truman, though.
that's when
what's
flathead were
great.
prominent. I mean, it wasn't uncommon to catch
No,
a
that's
flathead.
right. And they were big ones.
Shoot, I remember one time I was in summer flipping a big worm in trees up the past Berry Bend, flipping in deep cedar trees, and I caught back to back to back. I think I caught 5 catfish, and 3 of them were blues, and 2 of them were flatheads. And I was like, "What are they doing out here in these trees?"
Absolutely.
like suspended in them. Like,
Yeah.
they weren't on the bottom or nothing. They were suspended in them.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
So now that the lake's 17 feet up, and we're going to get into this tournament that Darren and David were both talking about, or we're both competing in a week or so ago. But the lake's up to 717 now. I mean, that's got to have changed everything on the bass fishing. What would you guys be doing, Darren? What would you be doing right now to try to go catch them compared to what you were doing?
Yeah, crappie jig and Bobby. Bobby Garland.
Yeah.
Bobby.
No, you'd be going to you'd be fishing bushes and grass right now.
Yeah.
And that's what I'd be doing. I'd be fishing the same flat style pockets, looking for, because they're still spawning. Or they probably haven't even started. They're probably getting ready to. So they'll be moving back. The whole thing right now is trying to find that point, which I took you last year.
Yeah.
And to find, it don't have to be a defined bank point. It can just be a point in the grass or a point in the bushes. That's where you're going to catch your better ones. You can go in the back right now of probably any flat pocket, flip whatever you want to flip, and you're going to catch a fish in every bush, I'm sure.
Yep.
And you probably have a limit that weighs 10 pounds. Maybe if you got lucky, 11 or 12. But if you want to catch the better ones, you're probably got to come out to the first secondary points. Whatever makes a point there. Look for something just different.
Yeah.
That's what I do. If I can find a bush with a hardwood or a bush with a lay down in it, you spend a little more time on it. Otherwise, it's pretty well flip it in, pop it once, pull it out, flip it to the next one.
How about locusts? Lots of locusts
Locust
split
trees are
right
good.
now.
They're good.
There's a lot of them right now.
There's a lot of
Awful.
everything.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I got overwhelmed. I was out there for 2 hours a night, and I'm like, all right, there's quite a few bushes, and there's still some I can't see down there. So I'm like, that's almost too much
It's too
going
much.
on.
Well, I can tell you this: them things are hitting a crappie jig under a bobber. So I buy them stick bobbers like the styrofoam Walmart, like 3 in a pack, for $1. They're hitting that thing so hard when they plunk it, the styrofoam comes off the stick.
Oh my gosh.
Or they come up and jump and throw then your styrofoam goes flying. Dang! Then you just got a stick and a crappie jig.
That's,
You catch any good ones, or a lot of?
We got, I don't know, we had a good handful of keepers today, but I say keepers, 15,
Yeah.
17-inch fish.
Yeah.
But we had one about 3.5 pounds today. And that was the only what
That's
I
a good
call a
one.
good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
But a lot of 12-inch little red eyes.
Yeah.
I seen them all running through the backs of the, or I pulled in a pocket today and I seen probably 1,000 bluegill out in front of a bush, and then I seen like a wolf pack of the
Oh, yeah.
12 inchers. I'm like, oh, there's a bunch of life back here.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty cool.
And they like crappie
It's
jigs.
springtime.
It'd be really hard to throw crankbaits right now. It'd
Yeah.
be really hard to throw a Carolina rig right now.
Yeah.
It's about a flipping
Yeah.
chatterbait,
If you ain't flipping, I
Spinnerbait.
would say the old bank line drag.
top water.
I was going to say, what about topwater? Because there's a lot of
Yeah.
going on out there right now.
Yeah.
And I know it ain't carp.
Yeah.
I'd be throwing it.
Well, Steve Blake yesterday morning
I'd
when I was
throw a
talking to him
pop
said
line
he's
probably.
been just messing around for an hour in the morning, and I think it was 2 days ago he said he caught 4 pretty nice, 16 to 18 inch keepers on a frog, just
Yeah.
literally hitting the bank and popping it back into the water, and just pop, 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 and all in 5 feet of water or less.
It's shallow time. We watched, like I was telling you earlier, we watched probably 20 of those crappie that we caught today eat our jig.
I would like to see
I mean,
that.
keepers.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
You just dropping down, and you'd see them grass move behind them bushes, and you drop that crappie jig down right there, and then you see this big flash.
Did you catch any bluegill doing that?
No, just
They're
bass
all
and crappie.
Bass and crappie.
Yep, never did catch any perch.
I seen a
bluegill.
lot of bluegill today in the lower Tebow.
Yeah,
I was
we were
like,
mid grand up around Tightwad.
Was it super muddy?
No,
No?
really looking good.
Good.
So there's this event,
That's surprising with all the rain.
kind of an interesting format. It was called the World Fishing Tour that just came to Truman Lake here about a week and a half ago now. And the way it works is it's similar to, if you're into poker, I'm not into poker, but I'm told it's similar to the poker tournaments where there's 4 days of qualifiers. So each one of these days, teams show up, pay the entry fee, and they take the top 20% of the field. And then if you miss out on day one, you come back on day two and you can re-enter again, pay the entry fee, and try to qualify again. And you can keep doing that all 4 days until you qualify for the championship. And the payouts in this particular tournament were pretty good. So it was kind of an interesting format. David you went in day one right off the bat, and which was Wednesday.
It was.
And had you done some practicing ahead of that?
I did. Monday and Tuesday, I looked at some stuff on the water and figured out a few things, and couldn't wait to get there.
Yeah.
But in its strategy on the qualifying days, because if he has 5 boats, one team
Right.
qualifies. If you have 6 boats, 2.
Mm-hmm.
So your numbers for the next boat are 6, 11, 16. So that'll get you 2,
Yeah.
3, or 4. And so it's just one of those things where you have to weigh it out. Well, there were 7 or 8 teams the first day, up until that morning they had 6. I made the 6th team, and so they had 2 others show up, I think it was, and we had 8. So there's 2 teams going to qualify, and I went ahead and had found some fish in I like to creek fish early in the year. I'm looking for the very first ones, wanting to try to think about spawning. We've had a crummy spring, rain, cold. Just, it has not been good. You get a day of warmth and 3 days of cold, so you can't gain anything. So these fish are really kind of in a grumpy mood. They're wanting to be up shallow, and they're not up shallow, and so I was able to find some that were actually getting ready to sit, and by that I mean spawn. But they were in the areas that they were going to spawn. They're using laydowns, they're using stumps, they're using whatever it might be. I didn't catch any fish off of a traditional 45-degree angle bank. Everything was flatter than that. So, and I know from fishing this lake forever, where there's a gravel creek bed, where there's not a gravel creek bed, and I know, I could throw out in the middle of the creek and catch one out there because they'll spawn out there. You know, if there's a little root that's out there and they can get next to it, or a rock, or a bigger rock, or whatever it might be, they'll spawn out there. They don't have to be up here on the bank, just as long as that gives them what they need. So I was able to find that and fished clean, and was very fortunate, and I had like mid 17s or upper 17s, something like that, and was able to win the round.
Yeah.
So, and I think second place had a heavy 16, something like that, to get in, which consequently, whenever you look back over it, the first day was the lightest qualifying weights to get in the championship round. You know, it got rainy after that, overcast. The next day it takes 23 to win, and they only had 4 boats, so only one team went. And then the day after that, when Darren qualified, they took 3 that day.
Yeah.
And it was 19, 18, 17. And then the final day, when Brock and Brad drove back to try to get qualified, somebody throws 20 and a half on the scales. It was crazy. I mean, Brock and I were just talking, and we didn't expect that to happen. I mean, I was like, wow. Oh, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
That is possible, right?
Right. They do exist.
Well, and Friday was the day that you guys qualified, and it was, I know we did some reports on it, but we'll talk a little bit in detail here about it. It was, I mean, for all intents and purposes, most people have been like, why in the hell are you out on the water?
Had to be miserable.
Well, I know my boss and one of the guys that work for me, they said they sat around and laughed all day. Every time the thunder and lightning would crack, they'd laugh.
Yeah. And, I mean, it legitimately stormed on you almost the entire time. And you weren't too worried about the lightning, apparently. And
I fished when he was taller than I was. I was good.
so
I always had to lift the rod. I'd been in trouble, but it was all dragging.
Yeah.
Never low.
Yeah. And so for you, it turned out to be, I think you said it'd been one of the best days of bass fishing in maybe years that you'd had on Truman.
Probably years. As far as catching fish,
Yeah.
I had not caught fish like that in years.
And you caught close to 100, you
I
said.
think we figured up we had to caught 100. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And we caught fish really all day.
Yeah.
From the start of the day till the end of the day. All day.
Now, I know you were dragging baits as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I was flipping.
You were dragging black lizards, and can you share a little bit about that and why that was working?
Bass hate lizards. I mean, they hate them with a passion. And there's a lot of them around this lake. It's just, we started off fishing brush hogs. And the brush hog, everybody says, looks like a lizard. And it does. I mean, it does and it doesn't. It's a lot thinner. You know, it's a lot fatter. Lizard's thinner. If you ever drag both of them, you'll feel the difference. A lizard stays on the bottom. I mean, it just does. And that brush hog, you can feel it. It's harder to keep on the bottom. But they wanted that bait digging in that bottom. They wanted the nose of that weight in the bottom, and worked real slow. And that was the big key. We started off with that, and then when it's tough and when it's raining and lightning and thundering and you're waiting on the hail anytime, you think, well, we haven't caught a whole lot, so it might be a little tougher than I thought it was going to be. So I picked up that lizard and immediately started catching them, and I mean, it was lights out.
Yeah. Now, you weren't running far up in the creeks like David was. You were more towards the lower end in the cleaner water.
Yeah, we couldn't have been fishing the more opposite ends of the lake. There is no more opposite. But yeah, I stayed in the cleaner water, and
That also has
rain, the weather has all says it. I'm a dirty water fisherman too. I fish dirty water. We don't fish that much different.
No, we don't.
But I went out. I practiced a lot for this tournament. I went out like an hour.
Yeah, he spent a lot of time doing his homework.
But it's Truman, you know. I fished it 100,000
It is.
times.
Right.
I went to one of my spots. I was going to fish Wednesday, and I thought, I know they're going to catch them in a river. It was going to be a perfect river day. And I thought, if I can go to my best spot and pop a couple big, I got one spot, I think I can compete with the river guys if it's on. If it's not, I can't.
Yeah.
And I went to it, I got one bite. And I decided not doing it. It's not going to happen. So, and the water was a lot dirtier than what I thought it'd be. So I didn't fish Wednesday because I didn't think I could compete with them, and probably a good thing because I probably couldn't have. And then Thursday, my partner had to work, so it was Friday.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a whole much choice.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to wait for Saturday. And my reason was, it's not that any of us are scared of anybody, but why go fish against a bunch of guys that know the lake as good as you do if you don't have to? And I knew Saturday he was liable to have 5 or 6 of the Toyota guys show up. So why would I want to go fish against them if I don't have to? So that's kind of why I picked Friday. I didn't care about the weather. It didn't matter to me what it was. You know, we've all fished in some crap.
I hate it.
Yeah.
Terrible.
It's not fun.
Yeah. Touch on that bait deal.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of research on this as far as my own sweat equity on the water. When they want the brush hog, they want bulk. And I always put a heavier weight than what most people throw on because I want it on the bottom. I want that bass that is wanting to make a nest there. It's not moving. Sometimes I'll flip it out there, and if I think that that's the spot, I hold it there. And I never move it with my rod tip. That is a huge key. If you're paying attention at home, this is the time to listen. I move it with my reel handle. That way it never hops. It goes just like this on the bottom. Try that.
It's difficult to do.
It's difficult to do.
I've said it a bunch of times. I don't know if I said it last time. It's just, don't put too much in it.
Yeah.
How's a lizard
Right.
walk?
Yeah.
How's a crawdad go through the water? How's a shad or bluegill? I mean, just think about how they react
right.
in the water.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way the bass want it. Make it as natural as possible.
When they,
Yeah.
when they get finicky, that's when I go to the lizard. When I start thinking that they're there and they won't eat that, because there is a time when bulk is not what they want.
Yeah.
And then I'll either throw a tube or I'll throw that lizard.
Ned rig.
I don't own those, Brock.
That's kind of like the Bobby Garland.
Don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you should be throwing now.
I know.
I freaking hammer them.
I know
on
it
that.
catches them,
I know.
but it's just not my style.
Ned rig with a 12-inch worm on it.
Yeah.
Pulled up.
I'll tell you what.
That's not bad.
I had a Facebook memory pop up 2 days ago from a day I was out on Truman 3 or 4 years ago, and I was fishing a Ned rig, and we caught, I don't know, 20, 30 bass, all on Ned rig, and I mean,
You were on the Jeff pattern.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like we had some.
That's what
20,
I'm
we didn't
fishing.
have some 20-pound sack, but
I'm
I
fishing
bet
a
our
16th-ounce Ned rig.
I bet our best five had were 15 pounds on the old Ned.
Yeah, you would have just been out. You'd have got to fish the second day.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, another $500
You would
bucks.
have had to made a bigger Ned rig
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
next day.
So we know they both qualified, but conditions drastically changed, and it impacted, I think, you more so than
it did.
than Darren. And I wanted you to kind of talk about that. What happens when the lake starts getting nasty coming up, and what that does to the river bite, and why it's not good.
Sure, absolutely. So the places that I found, the reason why that they were so good is that the main river was dirty, muddy, terrible. But these creeks had cleaner water in them. In fact, you could be on the river and look into the creek. Okay, not that one, not that one, because you could physically see it.
Yeah.
So you get in there, you've got clarity. It's they're where they need to be, and then all of a sudden you get flash floods, you know, on Friday night in the area, and Saturday morning I drive over places and I see that the creeks are bank full, raging, and I looked at a couple of things, and you've got logs coming down certain creeks, and you've got sawdust mats everywhere, and so some people will say, well, David, if you know that they're in there and the water comes up, you just fish a little deeper. Well, that bucket doesn't hold water, and the reason why is that clarity is important for these bass. I don't care if you're a dirty water fisherman or not. You're lying to yourself if you think that clarity doesn't make a difference. Because if I can see it, they can see it better. And I want to be able to see my bait at least 6, 8, 10, 12 inches, whenever I'm flipping. I like that because they can see it and they'll react on it. And you just simply don't have that when those conditions come and you've got all this extra trash and everything else. So that bass that was getting ready to sit or getting ready to spawn on that stump, now that stump is 4 feet deep and the water has went to heck as far as the clarity is concerned. So they're not going to spawn there. They are not going to spawn there because they weren't already committed. They were looking around, they were staging, they were wanting to be in that area, and so they're going to move with the water. And the drawback is typically at Truman is that they'll start running the water and it messes everything up. But they haven't. They've let it come on up. So knowing that I couldn't go back to my creeks and catch those bass, I had a little bit of backup, but from doing my homework also, love the big palmy arm. Can run it blindfolded. I've caught hundreds and thousands of bass up there, but I knew that pomme de terre was releasing water. When pomme de terre releases water, especially at the rate that they were releasing because palmy was high, it makes the river water temperature 56 to 58 degrees. There's not going to be a difference if you see it. If you see them releasing that water, it comes right off the bottom of the pomme de terre, and it's cold. And those bass are the latest ones to really go ahead and do their thing. Another tidbit, if you're listening, but so I knew that I had some stuff in the main lake area, not the main lake area that I call the over here where Starrett, Little Tebow, that, but the main lake area, like from, if you were to draw from Osage Bluff to, let's say, 83 Bridge, all that Little Palmy, I call that main lake. I'm in the big Palmy once I get underneath 83 to me. So I ran around, fished some of that stuff, caught a few, and you're just having to fish because all of a sudden
It was
now
clean through all that.
it was clean.
It was almost too clean.
Yeah, it was. It really was. And I noticed that morning I come in, we have a west wind. You don't really realize how, because all the old timers are like, oh, when the wind's from the west, fish bite the best. Not when it's blowing 25 to 30 from the west. It's not good. Because some of those places, it's as it sets up, you can't fish them effectively. And lots of those pockets that I was fishing were then being impacted by the wind. So now I'm having to make more lemonade because I've got more lemons. And so, okay, I move around, I catch some fish, and just like fishing, everybody loses them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I did have 2 bites that did not get in the boat, and they were better quality fish, but don't know how much exactly. It could have helped me. I could have got the last place check, or I could have not.
Yeah.
It's just one of those deals. You just got to play the hand that's dealt. And so I really didn't have an adequate amount of backup because when I saw what I saw, and I was trying to keep track of the weather and everything. The weather was kind of changing long range every day, and then all of a sudden when it happened, it happened.
Yeah.
Because we got rain on Thursday, but we didn't get enough that it messed it up. And it's like, okay, everything's still cool, but on Friday, that's when, the monsoon came. And so, man, you got to have a backup plan. And I'm kind of stubborn. There's certain arms of the lake that I really like. There's certain arms of the lake I don't like. And the reason why is they are so close to boat ramps, they get so much pressure, you can't individualize yourself and separate yourself. And what I mean by that is the bites and the bite ratio. So 10 boats come in a creek in the Tebow. Let's just say any creek in the Tebow. 10 boats come in. Okay, what makes any of those 10 boats any better than the other? You know, granted, the skill level is different, but when they're biting a certain way, everybody's got an opportunity to catch the same fish.
Yeah.
There's no separation, and I don't like to put. It's not. I like to play percentage ball whenever I'm playing. I've said that for years, and I would rather put myself in an individualistic opportunity than having to share fish with 10 boats.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Yeah.
You know, it's a calculated gamble.
Yeah. Darren, and did you kind of stay with the same, you were kind of the same pattern on Sunday as you did on Friday?
Yeah, I actually, that morning, I mean, I knew it was going to be sunny. It's still going to be windy, but I knew it was going to be sunny. And the wind didn't affect me where I was really fishing. I was pretty secluded. But I told my partner, who he was pretty new to, I mean, bass fish quite a bit. He never won. I said, you know, we got a shot here, but I said, I can promise you, when that sun comes up, we're going to change. This water's too clear for black. They aren't going to like black. And it was, I didn't mess around. And for me not practicing like I should, I usually spend 2 or 3 hours the first day looking. So I waste the first 2 or 3 hours. Well, that day of the tournament, I knew where I was going.
Yeah.
I mean, I went straight there, and I was the third boat to fish it. And I just waited for them to get out because I watched them fish. I knew they weren't doing what I was doing, so I wasn't concerned. I seen them catch some fish, but fishing with the old partner that I've got, Doug, he'll fish behind Roland Martin. It don't matter to him. He don't care who he's fishing behind. He makes it a game to catch one behind him.
Yeah.
So my mindset's a little. I don't look at boats. I think more about what they're doing in the other arm than I do about the boat in front of me or behind me or whatever. But they did about 2 hours in, 3 hours in. We had a decent stringer. And the funny thing is, the wind that night, over the weekend, had blown a big limb off a big tree that I had caught. I didn't catch nothing the first day on. And there used to be a lay down beside it, wasn't there no more. I'm like, well, that stinks. I've caught a lot of fish off that tree. Well, the next day, the good Lord, first of all, he made it rain 2 inches, so I didn't have to worry about Ryan. So I went from 7 boats to 6 boats, and honestly, I told my partner that morning, Ryan screwed. So I said, so we're only fishing against 6 boats now. And then when I went to that tree, and it had a great big limb up on top of it, and the wind had blowed it down. Right, perfect lay down, right back on that tree. I told my partner, I have caught more big fish off that tree, and I flipped in there and caught a 405. And he's like,
You can't beat that. You cannot beat that.
I said, it's just
Hey, when it's your time,
It's your time.
Yeah.
So we had a decent stringer, but that sun got up, and I noticed I went about an hour without having a bite, throwing that lizard. And I told my partner, he hadn't caught anything for a while. On that, he was throwing that black brush hog, and I said, you need to change to green pumpkin, watermelon candy, something. Stay with the brush hog, but change colors, and dip the tail in chartreuse dye. Well, immediately he caught like 3 3-pounders behind me, just bang, bang, bang. Well, that told me I needed to change, but I caught too many on that bait. I wasn't changing.
Yeah.
He went to town. He caught them 3, and that put us over. We got rid of a couple. I don't know if we culled all with all of them, but we culled one, and it did it because
Yeah.
we were only 1 by 0.3. But him changing made a big difference. But we fished the same locations, and it got a little more stingy, as that sun got up. Of course, that water's clear, and I don't like it when it's clear and sunny.
It's
So-
really clear right there.
I said, we had an hour and a half left, and I said, let's go. And I mean, the wind was blowing good, and I made a run to 13 highway. I knew it was going to be dirty, but I've caught a lot of big fish up there, and that's all I was looking for was one big bite. And I went up there. As soon as I rounded the corner, same problem David had in the river. the first tree I seen was out in the water 25 feet.
Yeah.
It's so flat up there.
Yeah.
That water, once it gets to a certain spot, then it spreads, and then you're just done.
It
You can't
makes
catch
it
'em.
fish a lot bigger.
No, terrible.
Oh.
We went ahead and fished it because we made that run, and then we didn't. I think I had one little byproduct bluegill or crappie, but then we turned and headed back. But that was it. We were pretty.
What
well
made
done by
you
noon.
fish the clean water to begin with for the game day?
The rain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew the water
That's
was.
good.
Well, it doesn't bother me to fish dirty. Not dirty. I'm a little different. I know David won't fish. I mean, I've seen him. I've seen him coming out where I'm going in, and he's going, "That water looks terrible." I'm going
Yeah.
fishing. I'm like, "Well, that ain't bad. I can see that deep."
Yeah, I can
And-
see that, dude.
Well, so to me, clean water is a lot different than a lot of people. But when it's raining, it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
You just don't have to. Then fishing that clean water will do the same thing they do in the dirty water.
Yeah.
They get shallow.
They get shallow. So, but our fish was in 3 foot most of the time. But
Yeah.
the funny thing is we couldn't catch them on the roots the second day. Everything the first day, you had to flip past that tree and drag it through them roots. And you'd feel it come over one of them roots and then boom.
No.
But they were just shooting out and grabbing it. Well, the second day, we didn't catch anything off laydowns first day. Second day, all off laydowns. You couldn't catch them on the roots. They'd moved to the laydowns, the closest laydowns. It's just kind of odd. Laydowns are more shaded, and I'm sure they're wanting to move up.
I was going to say
All
they were
my
probably
fish,
getting closer to
they're
sitting.
getting, they're getting closer to sitting, and I think that's why the brush hogs started working better. Too, I think whenever they go to setting, that brush hog's a better bait. I think
What size lizard did you throw?
6.
Really?
I throw a 6-inch lizard. Only time I throw an 8-inch lizard is if I'm rigging, Carolina rigging.
And I don't own any 6-inch lizards.
I can promise you one thing. I went to Everhart's because I went through 3 packages. I went to Everhart's to pick them up, and after that stupid interview, I didn't even buy one. It's full of all the lizards, no black ones. They're all gone.
You're like, oh, man, I screwed myself.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Fun.
But I got the bait. I should cut it off even. I'm pretty proud. I want to give it to Ryan so he can hang it on.
That's perfect.
Just to rub it in.
That's perfect.
I even brought the different ones. There's the one.
How nice of
That's
him
it.
giving you that, David.
That's the right color.
Yeah.
Black emerald.
Yeah.
Ryan, I just told everybody black. I keep one thing. I was going to just shoot. I thought it'd be a good thing real quick, because I know you're probably about out of time, is somebody tell them the difference in the hooks. Because you're bush fishing now,
Yeah.
and that would be a bait you throw in the bush, and this would be a bait you throw in the bush.
I won't.
that hook.
I won't.
With that hook.
I won't throw that in the bush, and the reason why is the bulk. I will throw something
thought-
like.
I agree.
go with
I
that
will
lake
say
right
this
there.
does get stuck more. Yeah.
Yeah.
This will help.
Yeah.
That's what I-
That's
But
what.
I don't like this as much just because whenever it gets over that limb and it's sitting there and you're like, oh, just get off of there.
Right.
So, because a lot of
That's
people
not
just go to brush hogs and don't fish it, so it does
Go to the bigger scene.
But the flipping hook and, the worm.
And you know what? That's it's
Were you
funny.
using lead?
I always use lead.
Yes.
You do.
My dad
I
loved
never use lead anymore.
I think I get hung up
That's
less with lead because it's longer and more slender than I do the tungsten.
My
I
dad
think-
says it's too many bites with the tungsten.
And you can see the
Lead's
scratches.
no
on,
bite.
you can see
Yeah.
the scratches on the lead. When he said the hook, just something about seeing them scratches. You're like,
Yeah.
But I think tungsten keeps the bait on the bottom better.
and you're probably right
But it also feels like bites.
because it's
Not to-
rounder.
yeah.
It's
Well, not to
rounder.
me.
I know it.
I don't like dragging the tungsten, and I really think it's because it's so bulky right here. And that's a lot narrower.
I throw the worm weight. I don't throw the flipping weight
Yeah.
in the tungsten.
So if you're throwing a brush hog into these bushes like right now, you're going to throw a half-ounce weight on it.
That's a 3/4.
That's 3/4.
Yeah.
Or,
I was throwing a half today, but I was using something like this.
So you're
That's
going to throw a
what-
bigger weight.
Yeah,
Yes,
see with that,
absolutely.
since it dangles on the limbs every now and then, like let's say you skip it in there, and I missed.
Yeah.
you want the 3/4 to take it back down. The half ounce is good with this because it doesn't get.
Because when you're throwing in the bush, it's not like working down a lay down. You're not going to drag it out of it, or you're not
Yeah.
going to try to
No,
bring it out of it.
you're- boom,
You're just going right in the
there.
middle, and
Yes.
they're 9 times out of 10,
They're
they're either
on
going to
it.
hit it as soon as it hits the bottom, or they're on it before it gets to
Yep.
the bottom. It's a reaction bait.
Yep.
This is my guy.
Yeah,
See, and I-
use that crappie.
Christmas
See,
pumpkin. That's my favorite.
Christmas pumpkin.
That's
is that what
juicy.
that's
So
This is
you,
juicy.
you like throwing this hook?
If I'm throwing in the bush,
Bushes,
I throw
for sure.
flipping hook.
No.
On game day though, because you will waste a bunch of baits with this because they get
I
torn up.
don't throw it. Don't like it. I've tied the snell knot.
Snout.
Yeah, I tried
Better.
it. I don't like it. No, it's not better for me.
So it's, you can see how none of us agree.
No.
We all just do our own thing.
I agree with you.
And,
I agree with you on
and
that.
I tried to make
Game day,
that.
I'm throwing one of these.
I tried to-
Practice, I'm throwing this, so I don't.
Now
go
when
through a
I'm
bunch of
dragging,
baits.
I throw this. I don't know why. This is so sharp
That
and
gets.
goes through that hook or goes through that plastic squeezy. I get hung up a lot more dragging. So I do throw this dragging. But when I'm flipping bushes or flipping, period,
You want to get
I
them.
get them.
And that's the trocar.
And that gets them deeper
It
too.
gets
So
them deeper.
where if they are on a limb and you're bringing it over that limb and you're like, come on, get off there, you don't lose them because
No.
it's so far in the snout. You don't just rip his mouth out. That's what I think.
So that's a trocar 5/0.
This is like just a 4-aught.
Okay.
That's like a 3.
Might even be a 3.
And what do they call that?
I think I bought it
Do they
for
call that a
$14.
worm
I think I
hook
bought
or
it
a
for
flipping
No,
hook?
no, it's a. It.
Don't be
what do they
lying.
call it?
I can't bend that if I get hung on a
No,
cedar limb.
that's not bending.
You're gonna have to get your
You need
lighter
bigger
out
braid.
and burn it.
So that's just something to tell the crowd. If it makes sense in between your ears,
Do it.
then
Yeah.
that's what you have to do. Just like I
A
just.
lot of it's confidence.
It is.
It's confidence.
It is. I've caught thousands of bass flipping a bush with either a tube, with either a tube or a beaver. And see,
bad.
you're getting ready to see why I don't like it, because I don't like how it lays on the hook.
Yeah, it does poke through quick.
It does. And that's and. I mean,
you
I-
can see Jeff loves the bass fish.
See, Jeff, you gotta get that dude up there. See,
Yeah.
I bring it up there where that.
Get way up.
yeah, you do. That's right.
There.
See, then that buries the eye.
That's right.
Puts it right on your weight.
And half the time I'm
that
so cheap
looks
that
longer.
I'll hook it in that meat so it doesn't
I hook
just
it
keep
there,
going
and
through
then
the
once it
middle.
rips, I hook it over here.
Yeah.
Until it starts twisting your line up, then you got your.
Yeah, then you gotta go the other way.
I won't even put it on because then I'd have to catch one and
And
stink.
it makes a big difference. These things got eyeballs on them. You gotta make sure the
Eyeballs are up. Eyeballs up. That's right.
Them bass can see when that 3/4 ounce weight takes a bite.
He doggone right. They can see it.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
And congratulations.
Yeah.
And congratulations on your
Yeah.
qualifying win.
These guys are the winners.
Yeah.
Congratulations to them.
He's the winner. He's the Truman Lake special.
Yeah, until
Yeah.
next
Does
time.
that make you a world champion if it's a world fishing tour?
I got this checked like as long as it's taken.
Billy Madison.
I've never
that
even
right?
seen one that big.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, if it's a world fishing tour, that makes you like a world champion.
Yeah.
World fishing champion.
I want the belt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm fishing the one at Lake the Ozarks. I want the belt.
Yeah. It was a fun format.
Yeah.
It
Well,
is interesting.
And they've got more. They've got one. The Lake of the Ozarks one's in a couple weeks, right? Or 3 weeks. And then
oh, you guys are done.
and then Wilson Lake, and then I can't remember.
It's like June 21st and 22nd or something.
Okay.
Like that, isn't it?
it might be.
Isn't
And
it
it's a
right?
high stakes deal. It's like high entry, high payout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it was a 20,000 guaranteed
26 at Lake the Ozarks.
prize pool.
Prize
At Grand Lake and Table Rock, they did pay out 20,000 to first place.
Guaranteed first place money.
So
So they had like 10 a day
yeah,
for the qual.
yeah.
So Darren and I spent the week on the phone with each other
Trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
because it was as much strategy, and I texted Travis all the time because I was like, I want to know who's showing up today. What's the numbers?
Yeah.
What's the numbers? What's the numbers look like? Are you really going to go and fish, and there only going to be one spot? Do you?
Yeah.
You know, it's your better chances are fishing when there's more than one spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, just stuff to know.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of good bass stuff, a lot of good stories. Real quick before we wrap up, what's your expectations on catfish? I know you haven't been.
Oh, it's gonna get on fire.
Yeah.
all this water. As
Bobby
soon as it-
Garland's in the
What's,
corner.
what's the magic bait?
Cut Chad.
Yeah.
No bluegill at all?
No,
None?
not yet. I mean, it'll work, but not as good as shad.
Yeah.
But come about 1st of June to middle of June, then you can go to them little black perch run live. and it works.
Yeah.
I was going to ask
Might
you, is
catch
it
a
old
hybrid.
wives' tale? Because back when Magnum owned Bucksaw, he used to tell everybody, swore up and down, they used goldfish.
Yeah, not too many people use goldfish anymore.
Right. It's like, was that just something that...
It used to work. I mean,
They
the
still
trot,
use them on
the
trout
trot
lines.
liners
Trout
still
liners
use them.
them.
A lot,
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, my dad and granddad were two of the best big flathead fishermen on this lake, in my opinion, around the lines. I mean, we used to go down to Danes at Taborville and buy
Right.
goldfish 30 and 60 pounds at a time. We had
Really?
tanks set up, and I mean, they did it
Yeah.
big.
Yeah.
And but yeah, on trout lines, and some of the trout line guys still do, but not as much. I mean, used to all the bait shops around here when we fortunate to have Everharts, but when we used to have bait shops,
Oh,
years
like-
ago, and Rocky Top was open, and Cole was open, and Everharts was open. I mean, everywhere had a bait shop. You go in, they'd have perch, goldfish, leeches, crawdads,
That's right.
everything. And then now you
Lucky if you get
minnows
that.
and night crawlers.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the white bass and hybrids ought to start picking up pretty good on the lower end here pretty quick. I know they're actually, I heard good reports last week at the Weird.
They start turning that
Yeah.
water.
Yes.
Yeah.
my buddy
I think
was
it
asking.
might have slowed down a little bit here recently,
That
but
water's going to hit that weir road and boil over the top of it, and they're going to
Yeah.
be right there.
yeah. So overall expectations are the rest of this month fishing's gonna,
You're gonna see current fishing.
yeah.
And anytime you have current and you have constant, all the
But
variables
then
in
if
fishing.
you, how, like,
The
not
bass
next
won't be
week or
because the
Bass
bass
won't be.
haven't started
Yeah.
spawning yet.
Yeah.
They'll still be towards the back, but
Yeah.
once they're spawned, they'll be out on that.
When will the
You
bass
think crappie are
spawn
gonna be
kind
out
of wrap
there?
up?
I mean,
Will that be
they're
end of
gonna
May?
Swings
On the bass
post
spawn?
they'll get on a swing.
It depends. I think.
This year might be a little later.
I think that with the water warming the way it is, and we're on a moon cycle, because there's gonna be a bunch of them sit this full moon, and I think the majority of the bass are gonna sit this full moon. You'll have some stragglers, you always do, but it's 7 to 10 day. I believe it's 7 to 10 day gestation period for the fry, and then once they're grouped up on pole timbers and they don't have to be guarded, at that point in time, that's when I would think that you're going to need to look for current points.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's me. That's my take on it. It's usually after they spawn. It's 7 to 10 days before I see them on a pole timber, and at that point, if they're running current, you better be fishing one.
When do I put Alka-Seltzer in my worm?
all year.
It's coming down.
Stuff it in your tube right now.
Yeah.
That'd be
Works
awesome.
good.
Worst kid. Crappie, just stick with the crappie. Just chill out. Stick with the crappie.
Well-
Well, catch a 9-pounder.
Yeah, right.
That is a lot of really good information. These guys are awesome, a wealth of knowledge, and really appreciate them being here. Of course, you guys that are watching now, if you ever have questions, feel free to write into the website, into the Facebook page anytime. We try to get to questions as much as we can. Some of the topics we cover, are based around questions that have come in. So feel free, because we do fishing reports and articles. We can cover it all the time. So be sure to submit your questions. And of course, if you enjoy what we're doing here at Truman Lake Fishing Intel, please let your friends and family about it. If you know someone who likes to fish Truman Lake, tell them to come check us out. We appreciate all of you guys and your support. That's what keeps this thing going is the membership. So we really appreciate it, and really appreciate these guys for the great information and their willingness to share their knowledge with all of you. I want to recap everyone real quick. Darren Langford right here on the end. Jeff Falkenberry, Endless Season Guide Service. Brock Rinkemeyer. Brock's awesome. Brock, if they want to do a guided trip, how do they get a hold of you? What's the best way?
Facebook, Instagram, or just my phone number.
What's your phone number?
816-260-1696.
1696. Now you're doing crappie and white bass trips, and
For the most part, and then bass here and there.
Yeah.
If you want to go on a bass trip, I'll.
Can I get one about
take
the
it.
second week of September?
Absolutely not.
and then of course David Ryan here on my left, Dave's Custom Baits. And if again, just like Brock, if you're looking to do a bass trip, David does coaching sessions where he'll get in your boat with your equipment, your electronics, and help you work out the system to go find fish. David, what's the best way to reach you?
And you can reach me through TrumanLakeFishingIntel.com, or you can go to DavesCustomBaits.com. Find me on Facebook, or Tyler can point you in the right direction.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thank you guys for watching. I want to thank Nini's Italian Steakhouse and Anglers Port Marine one more time for helping to make these possible for us. And we will look forward to seeing all of you guys on the next one.